I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube, Joel Sains, joined by my buddy Gordon Dymowski, my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to continue our random episodes of Dark Shadows. This is episode 1199, chosen by me. This is 1841 Parallel Time. More specifically, it's the start of it. It's the beginning episode of this arc, which is the beginning of goodbye of the original Dark Shadows series. Narrated by the lovely Laura Parker, and written by Sam Hall, directed by Henry Kaplan. Really cool episode. I love Keith Prentice in this episode. This is his really interesting. You have a really interesting love triangle at the beginning of this arc. And I love how they plant the seeds early on for the rivalry of Keith Prentice's character Morgan and Jonathan Fritz's character Bramwell. No, he's not playing Barnabas. He's playing Bramwell, which is a really interesting character and a far different character from Barnabas, but really well done too throughout this arc. What did you guys overall think of this episode and all the fun characters we get? I love how the girls, Joan Bennett's character and Grace Hill's character, Barry Lamar Trask.
Yes, they do.
What did you guys think about that one, Gordon?
Well, I thought it was a great way to both resolve a long-standing plot from the. It's a nice transitional piece because Trask in 1840 goes into the room and then he ends up dying in parallel time. But it's also an interesting. I'm sure that whoever wrote that when Sam Hall wrote that, maybe on some level he was thinking, well, if we get a last minute reprieve from, being canceled, we can just have we'll have Jerry Lacey come back as a parallel time Trask, and they find his body, and the mystery is, okay, what's this body do? This guy looks like me, but he's not me.
Don't they say what the other Trask is doing in this episode?
Yeah.
What was it?
I believe he is an accountant in this episode.
Yeah. Gordon, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Well, there you go. He's an accountant who, it's like, hey, they found this body that looks like you. What's going on? But it's a way to kind of end that piece. And it's also good because I think because this is kind of the beginning of the end, you need to kind of go, okay, we need to end here. With this storyline, what you've got a show it knows it's going to be over in 4 months. You've got a lot of 1840 era costumes because they hired a costumer the year before. You've got writers who need to work. You've got actors who are at the top of their game. This is about this is not just, okay, they're not phoning it in. This is about as punk rock as Dark Shadows gets before the end.
Yeah, for sure. Patrick, what did you think about the ladies burying Trask here?
I thought it was sussy. I thought it was zesty. I thought it was a romp. I thought it was the feel-good hit of the season. I mean, yeah, what else are you going to do with a dead Trask? But you got to bury him. He's just going to stink up the joint up. I guess you put him behind a wall. This is the first Trask we've seen get a proper funeral. The rest get walled up into some spaces. This is the first horizontal Trask treatment we've seen. We've seen seated and we've seen hanging.
We get a mention of actually in this arc, and from a member of the Collins family, is religion, actually.
Yeah, they say the Bible.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, this really does feel so different because usually we don't hear, the Bible. Well, let's get, and later on in this arc, I believe it's Laura Parker's character who says, we got to give him a good Christian burial. And I'm like, huh?
Well, she's got to balance the whole pregnant out of wedlock thing.
Right? It's really, I know they don't say that in this episode, but this arc is just full of fun little differences.
Yeah, and to paraphrase a quote that was said on this podcast a few weeks ago, the Collins don't mind a little Trask murder.
No,
they don't. So, you know, you have to look at this, or you don't have to, but I choose to look at this as, you know, the afterword for the series, sort of the coda for the series, and try and look at the themes that it's setting up. And okay, so sorry, Joel, it's just a little, it's hard to concentrate. So yeah, it comes at the end of the show and it wraps it up. It's, you know, Dark Shadows, if you look at the primary themes that work in it, it is about, I think, outsiders and their relationship with the past of others, and how, you know, we are people in constant transition, and it is only by rejecting tradition that we can move ahead. Dark Shadows is a show where tradition is respected as an important element, but in fact, it just is inherently corrupt. So, and only by bringing in new people into your family, into stasis, do you have people for whom tradition doesn't mean anything, and you're able to have some progress. Sometimes it has to be destructive to be productive. You know, it has to, thank you, it has to destroy, you know, what has come before, which is what Angelique does, sort of what Jenny does. But then it can be just purely constructive, like Victoria Winters or Catherine Herridge.
I think one of the best things they do about this arc with the characters in general is you have Bramwell Collins, who is very much, though his last name is Collins, is very much an outsider to the main Collins family, him and his mother in a lot of ways. And you have, you know, Laura's character as well, which she's getting married into the family, but she's an outsider who's getting ready to be married to Morgan. And you have also Kendrick, who's going to come into the picture, Stella's brother, who's an outsider. He's going to affect things. And one of the biggest outsiders in living in the house really is Melanie.
Yeah.
Who, you know, just so there's a lot of outsider influence within this arc, which is really, really cool.
By the end, or the only insiders are what, Morgan and Julia?
Yeah. Well, there's Joan too, Joan's character.
Yeah, Johnny B. But that is a notable inversion. Yeah. That by the time we get to the end, you know, they take it outside, guys. And they did. So which brings us back to S.E. Hinton. But that's a, you know, Joel, that's a you need to do something about that situation. You know about Hawks Harbor, right?
What?
My eyes bulge comically. You don't know about Hawks Harbor?
No.
Gordon, you know about Hawks Harbor.
No, I don't know about Hawks Harbor.
Holy cow. So S.E. Hinton, I don't know all the details on this, so let me discuss it. S.E. Hinton, author of The Outsiders, which in the South was sold as The Outhousers. The Outsiders was a Dark Shadows fan and wrote a Dark Shadows book called Hawks Harbor. Or no, I guess it was called Collinsport or something. And it was going to go forward, but it had naughty words and things like that in it. And so at the last minute, I guess the Dark Shadows rights were rescinded or something. And so she had to change all the names. But it is it was written in the aughts, late 90s, early aughts. And it's not a novel for kids or teen contemporary. It's a novel for adults. And it's largely about Willie Loomis.
Oh, wow.
But Barnabas is in there and all these other characters. And you really need to read this. It's a short book, but it's very good.
Can I find it on Amazon?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give it a check out for sure, man. I'm always looking for something to read. So that would be something.
Well,
also in this episode, guys, what I really...
Yeah, it is available on Amazon for hardcover is 14, paperback is 17, Kindle is 12.
That's not bad.
Or 13.
Maybe I'll do a read along on the channel though.
Why not?
Why not, indeed? I really enjoy Keith Prentice in this arc entirely. He does a great job as Morgan, being the heel. You know he's going to be your heel. But where he really wins you over to is James Forsythe and how quickly he undergoes that change. If Dark Shadows had lived, if they had stayed on the air, you could tell they've got big plans for Keith Prentice going forward. Though they kill Morgan off, but they're definitely going to bring him back. He was just too good not to be brought back.
That's right.
You know, I love him and Jonathan's chemistry too. It's really good. And he's just, I know he shouts, but he does it so effectively. He turns it up really well.
Well, he's a guy who the writing makes him sound like a very moral man, because in this episode he's talking about he's going to go in the room no matter what. He knows he's going to go in the room. And this is not a complaint, but I think the way he plays it isn't that straightforward. Hey, I'm doing this because I'm noble. I think he gives it a little bit more of a nasty edge, where it's not as straightforward as like with when Frid plays Barnabas, you know that no matter whatever he does, you know there's something noble behind it.
Yeah.
With Morgan, and this is not a complaint, it's just an observation. I think he gives it a little bit more of a snarky edge, because the way that Frid plays Bramwell, this is a guy with a huge chip on his shoulder towards the Collinses. This is not, especially since his history is way different than Barnabas's history was. You know, this is not Barnabas goes off to England and everything as well. Like, basically Bramwell's the poor side of the family, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. And two, the way he comes across, Bramwell paints a picture, he's very spoiled and arrogant. And Keith Prentice as Morgan shows that in this episode a bit too, especially when he's around Bramwell, Jonathan Frid's character in the old house. And Keith Prentice is very smart to smile when he's got his back turned toward Bramwell. So you can sort of see some of that arrogance come out too, which is nice. When you're proving Bramwell right, that okay, you see it. And I'm with you, like he says about Catherine in this episode too, Laura Parker's character, that she'll make the house live again. But the way he says it, it's like it's more about Catherine being his possession than so much his wife. And later on too, you sort of see how they're married. I do think to a degree, he did love her, and she loved him. But Morgan is very, very jealous, very, very quickly. He's one of the most. He's Brutus 2.0 in every way, and he's beautiful for it too. Oh, God. What did you guys think of, though we don't see her in this episode, what did you think of the woman in white aspect?
I later tried to figure out exactly who she is in mythology, other than, in Dark Shadows Parallel Time mythology, a rich vein it is. And Who is she? I mean, I know the function she serves. Who is
Josette? It's Josette. I've looked this according to.
But Josette's still alive.
That's the thing. They say when I looked this up, I put Dark Shadows Woman in One. I'm thinking, who is it? Because we don't see it.
That's in primary time.
That's what I said. I was like, that's a ghost. That's Josette. That can't be here. And I'm like, so who's this woman in white that we never see?
Here, let me maybe make it simple. The woman in white she is as important to parallel time as the actual widows of Widow's Hill are to it's just one of those, it's that kind of casual kind of folklore that you really don't, it's nice to know, but you really don't need it other than if you see the woman in white, you know something's happening.
It was the question of the person with whom I watched the episode.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I don't think that granularly about those things, but it did make me kind of wonder, and I guess it was just part of the package that they bought, the curse package that Brutus purchased. With every curse, you get a free woman in white.
Or actually, they were kind of predicting the later Victorian novel by Wilkie Collins, The Woman in White.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? I really enjoyed the fact that Grayson Hall's character you could tell she's very strict with Melanie early on in this episode. And that's the thing too. Nancy Barrett's character is supposed to be playing the youngest. Me and Patrick talked about this for the 1841 arc. That's why she looks so thin and like that dress is so tight. She's supposed to be the youngest character in the arc. Other than Carrie. But from a Collins standpoint, she's supposed to be the youngest, which is really cool. I love her interaction with Laura and obviously Collins. Julia in parallel time, actually gets to be a literal blood Collins, not just say, "Oh, I'm Barnabas's sister." I thought she was like, because she becomes a bit of a heel in certain episodes, but I always thought that they were going to have something way more sinister. What do you think, Gordon?
I think a lot of that is just the way Grayson Hall's playing it, because it can be a lot of the writing during this time is because it's so short and so compressed. Yeah. I think the writers were entering that kind of very lean, very fast paced. So I think they were trying to give enough for the actors to chew on. So I don't know if it was a case of, it could be that it was a day where Sam was kind of particularly, thinking, oh, Grayson is such a pain in the butt, I'm going to write her as a pain in the butt. And I think this is where Dark Shadows really, I don't want to say it comes into its own, but it kind of says, okay, this is what you're going to miss, because it's that great melding of writing and acting where it's hard to tell which piece is which.
Yeah. 1841 is just a gem of an arc to watch from a writing and acting standpoint. Everything just clicks so well. Because I know sometimes parallel time and Dark Shadows, some people like it, some people don't. But I think 1841, when I went to go do it individually, I'm thinking, man, this needs some attention here. And it did. It's something I hope more fans go back and watch, because it is just so much fun. Especially because the one thing we saw Josette one time alive, but we didn't never see her as an older woman. And when they got Mary Cooper to play an older Josette, my God, is she so good in this arc. She fits like a glove. It's so good.
Not Jackie Cooper.
Yeah, but so really good episode. I'm trying to think too. Oh, Morgan interrupting Catherine and Bramwell as they're in her college.
Notice that weird bounce that he has as he pops into the room. It's like he was on a little springboard or something.
Yeah.
He's leading trousers first. looking like he had raided Joel Crothers' closet.
Well, maybe he did. I mean, Carruthers was out of here by now, so maybe he's like, oh, okay. Maybe he found Carruthers' stash.
Did you guys notice on Jonathan Fred's face, like his certain part of his face looked dark?
It's the 5 o'clock shadow. It's a 5 o'clock shadow. Nice.
I know. I'm like, okay, so he's got this 5 o'clock shadow. I'm like, okay, all right.
It makes him look more working class. I really thought about that in this episode. They were very careful with his makeup.
Yeah, they were.
It sort of makes him look like Fred Flintstone.
They do.
Now that would be a performance I would love to see. Jonathan Fred as Fred Flintstone and John Carlin as Barney Rubble. I would pay to see that.
We all would.
Hey, Fred. What about Mr. Slate?
Who do you? Okay, so now cast the other parts. Cast the other Flintstonians.
Let's see. I would say, and I'm gonna get hate mail. So I'd say you do Laura Parker as Wilma, Catherine Lee Scott as Betty. Maybe you have Louis as Mr. Slate. David Hennessy as Pebble as Bam Bam.
You know who I have as Mr. Slate, and I know he's out of here by this time too, like by this. But if I could have somebody as Mr. Slate, it would actually be Dana Elker.
You have an eye for the erotic. See now the woman I would cast as Mr. Slate. No, as Veronica, or who's the redhead? His wife.
Wilma.
Yeah, Wilma. Yeah, is Marie Wallace, because she has the red hair.
Okay, that fits. Can't really argue with that.
And then you get Laura Parker as Betty, because she's already used to the black wig.
Mm-hmm. And so you'd have Catherine Lee Scott as Pebbles.
David Hennessy as Bam Bam.
Bam? Yeah. Those are laughing insanely now.
I
think we're in trouble.
That's an image.
Julie, you're going to laugh that way one day, and we're going to see your hands come out with 2 surgical gloves on, just covered in blood. And then I'll go back down. Now, what was your favorite scene in Can't Stop the Music? You'll just keep going.
What was you guys' favorite scene in this episode?
Ooh. I'm going to say the discussion around Trask's body, because it's such an interesting little tidbit that they didn't necessarily have to do.
Yeah.
They could have just had it as, okay, we found some strange guy wandering around, or we found a body, or the sheriff took, or whoever. But it kind of sets up the tone that this is a town. And it sets up that there is a secret, and it sets like an interesting little. Here's something that we could pick up later if we want to. Even though they know this is the end, I think there's still that secret hope, like, okay, something will happen.
They are relatively casual about dealing with it, too.
Right.
Yeah.
And that gives it a very kind of Black Plague era visceralness. Just comfort with death. Yes, it died in the room. We took care of it.
Yeah.
That's
because
because
if you think about it, most of Dark Shadows is about the Collins family slowly closing themselves off.
No.
Okay, it's about a family that is showing that by the time we get to the 60s, it's basically base under siege. It's the Collins family, and Barnabas is the first threat. This coda is about the Collins family opening up, that they've been closed off by this curse. And that now that, Trask is ironically, in Dark Shadows, in any flashback, whenever a Trask shows up, stuff is going to go down.
Sure.
It's hitting the fan. And in parallel time, ironically, in this timeline, it's Trask that actually starts. This is actually the start of the eventual opening up of the Collins family.
Yeah.
He inaugurates the end of tradition.
Yes.
He really does. Patrick, what's your favorite scene in this episode?
Oh, I think the awkwardly abundant exposition between Bromwell and Catherine, that they want to make sure everybody knows everything they need to know about this couple, which is a wise storytelling move.
Yeah.
But it's a little ham-handed in an endearing way. It has a very old-time radio, as you know, kind of quality. I thought I would make my fortune and come back. However, it took too long, or whatever. And I appreciate that they took the time to not have to take the time later. It's like, we got 2 shows in Vegas tonight. Let's get this over with.
Yeah, and kind of on that, I love how Frid's performance, the anger is right there at the edge, whereas before it was always an undercurrent. Now, granted, Frid, there was a history. He had refused to do the second Dark Shadows movie. Curtis he and Dan Curtis at this point were button heads. So I could see where he's not going to be the nicest guy in performance, but I love how he uses that anger in being this kind of, hey, look, yeah, I'm the poor relation. Nobody cares about me. Screw you. I'm going to be rich.
Yeah. Yeah. He uses it well, too. Very much so. I really enjoyed the fact that we're getting the mention of the room, there's a curse set on this family in this parallel time, and how they overall throughout this entire arc build the mystery of, okay, who put this curse on us? What did Brutus Collins do? Because Brutus Collins at first by his own family is made out like a victim.
Yeah.
And then when we find out the real truth is just shocking and amazing at the same time. The writers do a very good job of suggesting it may be James Forsythe, but then they do also really well. The late Christopher Pennock does a great job of letting you know, hey, it was Brutus.
Oh, there's another scene I like. It's just a line. I think Melanie's complaining about something. And Julia says, "Did the boys do this to you?"
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
She refers to the and that's really the first time we've had that family dynamic.
Yeah.
Because who are the boys? The boys are Morgan, Quentin, and Gabriel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, that's a Sunday night dinner.
And actually,
I'm sorry, keep going, Joel.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I like the scene where we find out that Kananga and Mr. Big are the same person. Or Yaphet Kotto pulls that makeup off and he's laughing. That's in a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like that scene.
Yeah, I like the scene where Don Adams is in his desk and he's driving down the street.
Let me tell you something about Don Adams in that movie. Go back and watch when the base is crumbling apart and Don Adams is crawling around on his hands and knees. There is something not right. And that's all I'll say. No human.
Hey, it's
go back and look. And Dana Elkar's in there.
I do know that Gordon, you picked episode 915 for tomorrow, right?
Well, I've changed my mind.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, we're going to do 844.
Okay, 844, and is 945 good for both of you guys?
No, it's 844, Joel.
No, for the time.
Oh, for the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we can do it at 844.
No, 945.
Okay, so we're doing 945 at 844.
Yeah, basically.
Yes. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. But this is such a great episode.
Keep your fetishes off this podcast, Patrick.
Well, here's one for here. I have a question for you guys for Friday. Do you got for Friday night? Do you guys want to do Terminator with me and Butch?
That's a good movie.
Yeah, I'm actually not available on Friday, so you two have fun.
I have a suggestion for you, Jewel, if you haven't seen it, to include in the discussion, because you don't, I think sometimes a little bit of compare and contrast is good. Throw in, I'm not kidding, throw in the Twilight or the Outer Limits episode, Soldier. Do you know that episode?
I know there's a Twilight Zone episode where there was a man from the future.
No, it's
Gordon?
Listen to Patrick.
I'll let you do it. I'm smoking.
Okay, well, Soldier is basically it's basically has some ideas that were later that are similar to Terminator.
Okay. I think I've seen it, but it's in black and white, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You can find it on I think it's on Pluto TV in their on-demand section.
I've seen it. I've seen the episode where he comes back in time. Yeah. I've seen it. It's been a while, but I've seen it. So I'll see you guys tomorrow night for episode 844. That is Gordon Dymowski. That was Patrick McCray.
Yeah, I don't know where. I think he just decided, hey, I'm out of here.
Patrick leaves whenever he likes to. So, links to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page is going to be in the description box. Links to the Dark Shadows.
Oh, okay, yeah. Patrick's laptop died, which is why he's. Oh, here he is.
Yeah, I made it.
As I was saying, links to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page is going to be in the description box. Links to the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound is going to be in the description box. Go pick it up if you haven't already. Guys, this has been a blast.
Joel, I'll tell you what, when you click off, stick around.
Okay, I'll hit stop record.
I love it.